welcome to this episode of Hello, Hello. I am your host, Alyssa Rogers. And today we have a phenomenal author, someone that has lots of experience in the industry, Kirby Lee. Welcome.
Alyssa, I'm so glad to come up and grateful that I was able to take a little short little drive up from Raleigh up this way to see you.
Yes, and this is what I love so much about, social media. A lot of people say, oh, social media, but the great thing about social media is I released Hello, Hello. On the 1st of January, and you reached out to me pretty soon after, and you're like, hey, I'm doing this. I see what you're doing. Like, let's talk, let's collaborate. And you live in Raleigh. You're like, let me take a trip down to Rogers and see what you're doing. And so I just appreciate you making the trip today.
Absolutely. Well, it's our industry is really unique in which we focus on we focus uniquely on delivering results for customers, for people that we work with every day, but also connecting and creating community. And that connection social media is great, but you and I talking here is a different level of connection
100%.
than texting on the phone or doing a Zoom call.
Yeah.
It's just a different level of connection. So being able to come up personally to be here makes it even more special.
It does. And we talked a little bit on Facebook, and then we had a Zoom call, and we talked a lot about your background and how you got to where you are today and what led you to writing this book that we're going to talk about today. And so I want everyone else to get to know you because we have a lot of local listeners in our area. And so let everyone know, who is Kirby?
Well, so the fun thing, Alyssa, was I grew up in the field just like you and your family. My father and grandfather were in the HVAC business. They ran a commercial and industrial construction company that started in the 50s in the Kinston, North Carolina area. And my father took that over in the 70s after my decided to retire and get out of the business. And then they decided to have me.
Yes.
So I grew up, Alyssa, doing things a little differently. I wasn't cruising the strip like we all did as kids, in rural Virginia and in North Carolina. I was in the sheet metal shop swinging a hammer, learning about plumbing fittings and putting together ductwork and seeing equipment being set. And so that was at an early age, that very blue collar mentality was instilled in me. And so that led to me going to engineering school where I practiced MEP design, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing for basically every vertical that was not healthcare and pharma and industrial in the Raleigh area for over 20 years. So in addition to obviously being in construction, I got the privilege and opportunity to be a professional engineer and design stuff, which is a whole different animal from sitting out in the field, sweating in 105-degree heat in Eastern North Carolina.
And what's really interesting to me when we talked the first time, when you were telling me your story, most of the time what you hear when you grow up in the industry is sometimes it's the expectation that you're just going to follow in those footsteps and you're going to go and you're going to own the business, run the business when your family member passes it down. That wasn't the case for you.
That's right. So actually what had happened was my father at a young age told me, Kirby, if you want to be part of this business, I'd love for you to be part of this business, but I want you to do a few things first before you do all that. And so that was actually recommending that I go to engineering school, that I get a professional engineering license, that I work and go that path, which is a completely different path than obviously construction and some of the stuff that you see every day. And what I realized was after that I was like, I like doing technical stuff. I liked, I still got a dose of being out in the field because as an engineer, you still have to go to job sites. You have to solve problems. You have to work with contractors. You have to work with owners and architects and figure out how to come up with solutions for things that happen in the field, because I know, newsflash, a big surprise here, not everything in the field happens according to the plans. I know that sounds like a big surprise, Alyssa, but
Kenny's
shocker.
giving a thumbs up. He's like, yes,
shocker,
I know.
shocker that unfortunately some things don't go according to plan in the field.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is after years of going through the engineering process, it took 13 years for me to get my professional engineering license. And the day that I got it, I remember telling my dad, I think I want to keep doing engineering. And he was like, I kind of felt like you probably want to do that anyway. I've decided I'm going to sell off the business and go. So the funny thing is, Alyssa, he now works for Brady Train in the area, in the Raleigh area, doing retrofits and all that stuff, and just hangs out and does all the big boy stuff with a lot less stress and no worries.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. And I love that was the push, that you had, because look at where you are now. I mean, you are an author as of August, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
I mean, this came out in August. When we talked about it, you were giving me kind of an insight into what enticed you to do this. But I want everyone else to know, like, you're going through this. You've been in this industry for over 20 years now.
That's right.
And you've seen so many different angles of it.
That's right.
And then what had you wake up one day and say, I want to write about it?
Well, actually, it was because when I was in engineering and something that I kind of saw, obviously, as a kid in construction, leadership training in our field wasn't designed for us. What I saw was also, in some cases, like, think about, Alyssa, your path. Like, you didn't wake up today and say, oh, you know what? I've decided I want to be in construction and I want to go and do that. That wasn't the path that you had.
No, it wasn't.
But then in order for you to switch to that path, there has to be a system and a process in place for you to do that. And so there were kind of three common things that I noticed, which after I left engineering, actually, I went to be an owner's representative for the government. And then ultimately being in sales as a regional person for that supports the Southeast for the team that I'm on now. But the common thing that happened in all of the wakes of the field was three things. We don't give leadership training to people because we assume that your technical skills as a blue collar professional should be enough. So Alyssa, a great example is you decided that you wanted to be a tech and go do service calls or installs or all that stuff. And then Kirby comes to you one day and says, Alyssa, you're a great tech. You do a great job. You solve problems. The homeowners are happy. I've decided I want to promote you to be a supervisor. And so then you're like, okay, that's great. And so the natural thing that happens in our field is that we just assume that your technical ability is automatically going to be that same skills being a service manager. And unfortunately, what we find out is that skill set is completely different than being a tech in the field. But so either you don't get any training from somebody about how to do that,
Very true.
or the training that you get wasn't designed for you. It was, well, hey, I worked at a Dunkin' Donuts and it worked here, my leadership training at Dunkin' Donuts, so it should work for you as a service manager.
Right.
Oh, but by the way, I don't even know what this thing called this rooftop unit, this thing that you're doing, what it is. So like that, and in our heads, like, we're very logical people in the blue collar field. And what makes us so unique is that you can today, like you and I, if we were billionaires, could go buy Dunkin' Donuts today.
Yeah, right.
No one could stop us from doing that.
Right.
But to be an architect or an engineer or in construction, you can't wake up today and decide to just say, you know what? I've got nothing to do today. I've made my billions on the yacht. I've decided I'm going to buy a structural engineering company because there are laws that protect contractors, engineers, and architects from what we call the trust fund baby. The trust fund baby that's bored today and decides he thinks that because he ran a Pizza Hut that he can be an architect. And so being all three, contractor, engineer, and architect, has one thing in common. That requires licensure, that requires working under a professional, that requires being in the field. So you can't obtain licensure in our field without doing those things. And it's actually like, it's a crime
Right, it is.
It's a crime in all 50 states for you to practice architecture without a license.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So that's really different because people think, well, I ran an IT company, so I should be able to be an architect. Like, no, you should not. Please don't try to be one. You're not going to be very good.
Yeah.
And so then the second thing happens to you, Alyssa. So after you've been promoted and you struggle and no one's giving you any training and your technical ability isn't enough, they say, Alyssa's struggling. I can't figure out why. I'm just going to hire this outside consultant that'll solve everything. Maybe I'll just hire Tony Robbins and he'll be the person that fixes everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Tony Robbins is probably a great speaker. Unfortunately, he probably doesn't know what a rooftop unit is or a HVAC unit is, even if you showed it to him on Google. And this is the person that's telling you how to develop leadership skills and a system that wasn't designed for you, and that Tony thinks because he ran a Dunkin' Donuts successfully that this is going to work for you.
Right.
So studies have shown for the Harvard Business Review that 90% of that training is ineffective. And we currently spend $200 billion every year on leadership training. And if 90% of it's ineffective, Alyssa, that means we're wasting $180 billion annually on stuff that wasn't built for us, doesn't work, and taught by people that don't even know what we're doing. And so then the final thing happens, of course, after all that, then ultimately we have bad leadership in our industry. And then that's where $9 trillion of waste worldwide happens.
Wow.
I mean, and of course, I know that government waste is a big topic right now.
Right.
For various reasons, whether you're red or blue, but when you hear that, you're like, $9 trillion wasted. It's like we could literally run the U.S. government off of $9 trillion. So fixing leadership is a $1 trillion problem. And if what people were doing was so good, we wouldn't be wasting that money today. So that was why the book was written, was to teach people a system designed for the field, from the field.
Yes.
And in a application-based format, not just, hey, Alyssa, I heard this worked at McKinsey School, and this should definitely work for you. And you're looking at me like you're a total idiot. Like you don't even know what a supply house is. Right. You're trying to tell me how to be a service tech?
Yeah.
So that was the idea, was a system-based process format that gives you applications and real-world examples, because the idea is that if leadership training is more effective, then what would ultimately happen is that better leadership happens.
100%.
And then the ultimate goal of $9 trillion of waste and $180 billion of waste goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we can spend trillions of dollars of money waste on something that might actually be more effective.
Yeah.
So that was the origin of the book, and
here you are today.
Yeah.
The lion attitude.
Yeah. So the book was named after lions because lions are one of the most unique animals in the world that are masters of execution, but masters of connection and community. And I know that sounds crazy. When your listeners, you're hearing that, you're like, oh, the lion, they're the most ruthless animal in the world. I was like, well, they are. But I mean, they're hunters and they're professional hunters and hunt in a way that no other animal can in the world.
Right.
But what people don't realize is they're one of the most social animals too. So they, in addition to executing and delivering results and taking out targets and having a very specific game plan of how they hunt, why they hunt, and how they do things, right? The book, system and process, right? Our industry, system and process. I mean, Alyssa, you don't randomly buy a 5-ton unit at your supply house and say, I've decided I put it on this house and I don't even know why, but I've just decided to do that. Yeah. There's a system and process for you to make sure that the building is, that the loads are right and that the ductwork is right. We don't randomly build buildings. We don't randomly design buildings. Correct. There's systems and processes for everything in our industry. And so, that's what makes this book different, is that it's system and process in a way to show you how to execute it, not just, hey, by the way, do this and it might work. No, there's actual real world stuff of what to do, why it works, and then what happens if you don't do it.
Right. And I mean, you lay it out in this book very clearly. And I love that you use real life examples, examples from your experience and what you've gone through. I mean, it really does pertain to what we go through every day. And I believe that anyone can pick this up and gain something from it. So I think that you've done a wonderful job laying this out and in a way that anyone can pick it up and start implementing what you've said.
Yeah, and that's what's important. When I wrote the book, one of the things that that I was really focused on, and I ask every person, Alyssa, that reads the book, I ask, can you execute this?
Mm.
Does it actually work?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it doesn't work, then I'm no more different than random guy that's trying to sell you on LinkedIn that he's a leadership expert
Right.
that doesn't know how to execute and
Right.
can't deliver.
Right.
And then, because like in the math formula that we teach, which is about the
Impact, right?
impact, the
Mhm.
inner leadership, which by the way, the letters of impact spell out a math formula that's based on lines. So
Check
there you
it
go.
out. Like, tell us about this. Tell
So-
us about it.
So the impact formula is taught based on two components. Because remember, there's three problems.
Mhm.
So the first thing is that 72% of the workforce has no idea why they're doing what they're doing right now.
Mm.
So by teaching people inner leadership skills and how to execute that,
Mhm.
that builds the I, M, and P. That's intention, motivation, and purpose, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're doing that, then you're not the 72% that doesn't know why they're doing what they're doing, right?
Right.
Because think about it. You were a tech. I promoted you to being a service manager. No one gave you any training. And do you think you're really going to be engaged and motivated and know why you're doing what you're doing anymore
Right.
at that point?
Right.
It's not going to work.
No.
And so think of it. The math, if those letters are missing out of the math formula, it doesn't add up.
Mm.
And so you're like, well, that shouldn't work. And you're like, well, yeah, it doesn't work. And so then the back half of the math is action and connection. Those are the two things that Lions are masters of. They are masters of obviously intention and motivation and purpose.
Mhm.
But doing that inner leadership work teaches you how to balance that ability to execute, deliver results, have a strategy, take appropriate risk. Those are all action components,
Mhm.
right? I mean, and there's strategies and skills about how to develop that.
Yeah.
But that's not all of it. You've also got to connect. You've got to build relationships. You have to learn emotional intelligence. You have to learn how to speak to people.
Mhm.
You have to learn how to work on a team with people and communicate. And those are skills that, of course, funny enough, we say Kirby was an engineer that didn't know how to speak to people, which is true. Because Alyssa, 10 years ago, I couldn't even speak to you today.
Wow.
I could not even have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And so, for me, that missing formula was connect.
Mhm.
And so, you look at it and you're like, well, Kirby, it was never going to work. You didn't know how to connect. And
Mm.
if you're just focused on results, then you're just going to, I made a reference to it. I call it the attacker. That's
Yeah.
what the attacker is, a person that can, from an outer leadership standpoint, is so focused on results that they can't connect with people. And when they
Oh,
can't
wow.
connect, they're just the bull in the china shop, just running around, destroying everything in sight. Say, Alyssa, I got the unit installed. No one wants to work with me, but I got it done.
Yes. Yes.
But then there's the other half of it too. Connecting only is also not going to work either.
Mhm.
Because you think about, like, we'll use social media as a
Mhm.
great example, right? You get on there, you say, oh yeah, I'm so great. I can do all this stuff. I post fun, sexy photos of
Mhm.
myself
Yeah.
making poses and
Yeah.
stupid stuff. But then when it comes time to execute, I ask Alyssa, well, I need you to do this. And you can't do it.
Right.
And so that's what we call being a con artist.
Yeah.
Because a con artist is a person that's so focused on connection
Mhm.
that they can't execute and deliver.
Mhm.
And so that's what makes this leadership formula so unique, is because it teaches you that you have to do both of those things. You
I love
can't do
that.
one, because look at the math. The A and the C if the A and the C aren't there, it doesn't work.
Yes. Because you can connect without the action. So it would have been connecting on social media, but the action is you being here today.
That's right,
and making
exactly.
it
Because if
happen.
I was just connecting with you and
Mhm.
saying, oh, Alyssa, I love your podcast, and I
Mhm.
never talked to you,
Right.
I'd con you. I'd be
Right.
conning you just
Yeah.
like no more different than, and I know that people get really, I got lots of interesting beta feedback when the book
Yeah.
was written, because like, that sounds really harsh. Like, being a con artist, I was like, well, conning people in a leadership role is not something you should be celebrating.
Right.
So that's why it's action and connection.
Mhm.
And the lion is one of the only animals in the world that is a master of both of those things. And so one of the neat little speeches that I like sharing, and it's specifically because women in construction love hearing this too, because lions obviously are one of the greatest hunters in the world. And of course, you hear, well, the lioness does all the hunting. It's like, that is true.
Mhm.
Well, there's a reason why they do all the hunting.
Mhm.
The reason why they do all the hunting is because they weigh less than a lion. They don't have a mane, so it's easier for them to camouflage.
Mhm.
They have a very specific system and process with other lionesses and how they take out animals.
You hear that, ladies? You hear
That's
that?
right.
Yes.
And so they don't randomly hunt. They have a very specific system and how they work together to take out animals that can't even see them coming. And a lioness can run up to 60 miles an hour.
Let's go. Let's go.
That's right. So but that's an important part of how lion prides are built,
Mhm.
but it's not all of it.
Mhm.
So in order for that to happen, though, well, someone's got to protect your lion pride from intruders while you hunt.
Mhm.
You can't just hunt and come back to nothing left, right?
Mhm.
So that's what the male lion is built to do. The male lion is built to protect and defend
Mhm.
because like it's heavier. Its mane is intended to intimidate and to keep threats away,
Mhm.
and also to teach. I mean, but the lioness have a very specific system and process
Mhm.
of how they work together. So I summarize this by saying, well, Alyssa, no, if your goal is to be a lioness for the people that you're around,
Sure.
to be the ultimate hunter, because the lioness is one of the greatest hunters ever. But ultimately, you need the defender and the shield so that you can be the hunter. And
Yes.
I'm proud to be your defender and your
Yes.
shield so that you can be a hunter.
Mm.
And so that's part of that dynamic, is that the lion and the lioness have to work together. There's a community, and it's based on that action and connection. They're both doing both of those things at the same time, and that's why lion prides have done what they've done for 10,000 years.
Collaboration and teamwork makes the dream work. And it's so true in every organization that I study or look at. It does not work if you're not collaborating and working together.
And what's neat is that you can tie it back to that math formula. And that's what makes it so different than anything that I've saw out there, was that everyone will say, oh yeah, you should read this book and do this stuff. But then no one can show you how to execute it,
Right.
because they've never done it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difference is that I can show you, the book is designed to show you how to execute. And I'm happy I love teaching people how to execute it because I've actually done it.
Yes.
And I also know what happens if you don't do it. And
you have done this. And there is a section in the book that talks about your 5 a.m.
That's right. The 5 a.m. rule. That's right. So the interesting thing was that most successful people in the morning are up at 5 a.m. And so, yeah, we've got away from the crowd. So apparently somebody...
Kenny, you're a 5 a.m. person, Kenny?
And studies showed that let's tie that back to the math. Well, why does the 5 a.m. club work? Because, I mean, we're talking about real world stuff. The reason why the 5 a.m. club works is that teaches you how to take care of yourself from an inner leadership standpoint to prepare yourself for the day that you're going to have. So that keeps your intention and motivation strong on a daily basis, and that makes your purpose strong too. So that's the I, M, and P, right? Think about what happens if you're not up at 5 a.m. or up at wherever time to prepare yourself for the day. What happens over time is that purpose decays because you think, oh, I can just sleep in today, and then all of a sudden you've decided not to exercise anymore because and it's a domino effect. And you can see what actually happens. Yes. So it ties back to that math. You're like, well, this is why it doesn't work. It's like, the I, M, and P are not there. And so your ability to then develop leadership skills and use them around other people becomes compromised because you've lost the reason eventually of why you were even doing it to begin with. And how effective a leader are you going to be if you don't even know why you're doing it? It's
so true. And it all comes down to commitment. And, what are you going to be committed to? You talk about journaling, you talk about meditating, and then you take us through your routine, your morning routine. So take everyone through, not too much because I want them to read the book.
Sure.
But take us through your day.
Well, so a typical morning is I am usually up at 5 a.m. Sometimes maybe even a tad earlier, depending on the circumstances, because I do got a little 8-year-old at home and a wife, obviously, as well. So So my first strategy is to do like meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because like you wake up and that's a chance to come with a clean mind about the rest of the things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my general strategies. I try to do that first because that's 10 minutes. So you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next thing is I start to journal about like things that I want to do for the day, like top 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not trying to do 10 things. I'm just trying to do 3.
Yes.
And 3 things that move the needle towards bigger targets.
Big
Because
deal.
because remember, that journaling sets you up for outer leadership because those components are things that you use for outer leadership to hunt line targets, which
Mm-hmm.
are in the back half of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So doing those things allows you to build a system. You built momentum. And then what's really neat is that you can see what happens when you're doing those things, but you can also see what happens when you're not doing them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it ties back to the math. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why you can prove out with math that, because once again, this was designed for the simplest of the blue collar world, like a
Mm-hmm.
person that's on a job site that,
Mm-hmm.
maybe didn't go to college, maybe has a high school education, maybe didn't go to tech school and they wanted to work as a carpenter,
Mm-hmm.
which is, which our field is built on hard work
Mm-hmm.
and effort every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so by having that system and process, that allows you to complete a math formula that, well, I jokingly say, works more than 10% of the time.
Yes. Yes. And so you're doing this every morning. You're living up to what you say. You're not a con artist.
That's right.
You're living it.
I'm actually executing it.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
what's also interesting is that, I'm not the perfect person in the world too.
Sure.
When I have setbacks, I can look back at the math and say, yep, there's why it broke down. Like I don't even have to think about it. It's
Right.
like, okay, well, my journaling was off this week. And then all of a sudden you notice that maybe your ability to connect is a little different
Mhm.
because you weren't thinking about how you were going to look at what your day looked like. You can tie them together and you can
100%.
you can see in the real world what actually happens.
Yes. And it just all comes back to consistency for me. And it's the consistency that you do every day, these little things that you do every day. And then one day you look back and you're like, wow, look at where I was and look at where I am now. And it's just those little things that you're doing every single day that gets you there.
That phase 2, that's where that phase 2 of the morning startup is so important because developing that purpose in phase 1 of the book is important. I mean, you have to do that. I mean, there's a system to do that. But that's not all of it. I mean, you can't just say, oh, Alyssa, I found my purpose. Good luck. I'll see you in 5 years.
Right.
It doesn't work. You've got to maintain it. And that's what the morning startup is to make sure that stays strong every day. So if you're intentional and motivated every day to do those things, your purpose will stay strong. And that will allow you to do that action and connection together, because without it, you can't do both.
Yeah.
You're either going to be an attacker or you're going to be a con artist. And unfortunately, Kirby wasn't always very good at this growing up. Kirby was an attacker, so I'm a rehabilitated attacker.
So coming from that, so you're a rehabilitated attacker, and we have a lot of people that listen every week, and I have a lot of people come up to me in the community and they're like, man, I'm trying to find my purpose, or I'm trying to figure out what to do next, or they're just unaware of what their next step should be.
That's right.
So what is the number one piece of advice you would give anyone that is tuning in right now?
The first thing I would say is that for people in our field, purpose is based on intention and motivation, right? You have to make a specific intentional effort to do it. You have to be motivated on a daily basis to do it. And so for most people that start out, I would say listening to content that resonates with you. I described in the book about, I sat in the park, knowing that my life wasn't going the way it was supposed to be going, or I wanted it to go. But there wasn't anybody to say, well, Kirby, I'll help you get there, because there wasn't a system built for me. I had to build it from scratch. And so I sat there and made an intentional effort to think, I don't like the way things are going. I want things to be different. And if you're doing that, then the system is now being installed in place so that you can then, I've got to actually put it to work. People think, Alyssa, that your purpose is just going to hit you like, you wake up one day and it's not the magical Hollywood fairy tale story that everyone
100%.
tells you.
Yes, you're
It
right.
requires work to find your
It
purpose.
does.
So that's the key part, is that you actually have to put in work and effort to build purpose.
I love that you said that, because it really is and you've talked a lot today to us about the inner work that has to be done to make sure that this happens and that you can stick to it. And I totally agree with that. I think that sitting down in a park and saying, my life isn't going in the direction I want it to go in. I'm going to look at myself in the mirror. What work do I need to do to make this happen? I think is amazing.
And that concept in phase one,
And that's so hard to do.
Is built on total responsibility.
Yes.
And most people, when you hear that concept, they're like, "What do you mean I'm totally responsible for everything?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "No, I'm not." I was like, "You are responsible for
Yes.
everything." And of course, I described an example in the book about like how somebody was out late at night
Mm-hmm.
and had an 8 a.m. meeting with a key client, in our field. And, they're out drinking, having a great time, not really paying attention to track of time, knowing that they got to have an 8 a.m. meeting with a key client. I mean, and so they don't make good decisions,
Right.
and then they oversleep, and then you've now missed, a key opportunity with a key decision maker because you didn't make good decisions. And that's not on anybody but you. If you chose to go to the bar, you chose to go drink and make decisions that put you in that position where things didn't go exactly according to your favor. So ultimately, and I love telling people this is like, I say everything that I do is my fault. I was like, and of course that sounds really harsh, but but it's true. Ultimately, either you play a direct role in what happens or you play an indirect role. Now, what percentage of that probably is up for some discussion, but it's not like nothing randomly happens. You make choices and decisions that put you in those positions.
100%.
So that's where the idea is that you're responsible for everything. So yes, surprisingly, Alyssa, you're now responsible for everything.
Yes, you're speaking my language. I love it. And so, what's next for Kirby?
Well, obviously, I've been working on the book. I've been happy to meet with groups to speak and teach the system to people, because actually going back to that action and connection component, I had a specific vision that's a lot different than what you hear a lot of people, because they get on social media and they say, I want to be a leadership trainer, and so I just need to post pretty photos of myself all day doing stuff that nobody cares about. And we know that from the act and connect, that doesn't work.
Right.
So there's two components of it. The action is teaching people, training people in the field, how to execute this system that was built for them.
Yep.
So that's part of it, but that's not all of it. And then the other part is connecting, and that's speaking to organizations in the AEC industry, because ultimately you can see, look at the math. You're delivering results and executing something that's effective, but then you're also speaking and connecting. And so the pitfall that a lot of people run into is they say, oh, I can just go speak on stage. Alyssa, think of all the keynote speakers that you see on stage. Right. I'm sure we could all laugh about these stories, and you listen to them and you know full well that these people don't know how to execute any of those things that they're telling you how to do. Yeah. But they're there to get your glamour shot photo with them afterwards to say, hey, I saw my race car driver.
Yeah.
And they're giving you this speech, but then they can't show you how to execute it because they've never done it.
Right.
But at least they got paid $25,000 to entertain you on stage for 45 minutes.
Right.
And so speaking only isn't enough. I mean, that's essentially a form of a con.
Yep. Well, I can't wait to see the amazing things that happen for you. And I really encourage everyone, your book can be found on Amazon and everywhere books are sold.
That's right. Yep. It's on Amazon. And we have a website called lineattitude.com where I show, and obviously I'm on LinkedIn as well, but the neat thing is the website is built back to that math. You can see in the math, like, oh, well, look at the math. This is why it works.
I'm going to make sure that I link everything, the link to buying the book, the link to the website and everything. I appreciate you coming here today and talking to us about it. But before we end this, everyone has to answer a random question.
Okay, well, let's
So
fire away. Let's see what
I'm
we got.
gonna let you pick
Oh,
what your question's gonna be today.
all right, let's see what we got. Pull this one out. Here, I'm gonna close my eyes so that way I don't know what it is, just in case it was the other way around.
Which 3 words would you use to describe yourself? Perfect question.
Mastery of action and connection.
Love it. Love it. And you do such a good job at connecting with individuals. For you to tell me that, you've come a long way over the years, I can feel that because I didn't know you back then, but I know you now. And you have just come in here, you've connected with me, and the way that you do it and the impact that you've made on me, I really appreciate it, and everything that you're doing for the industry.
Well, one of the things that's really special about Lions, and I tell people this, and it's regardless of whether you're a Lion or a Lioness, is that Lion prides, one of the things that make them very special is that when they connect and create bonds with other lions, those are for life. They build lifetime bonds. And so when they raise their cubs, those cubs are part of that pride for thousands of years, for generations. So this is about being lion pride mates and partners for life. And that's
Absolutely.
what it's about.
I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see the amazing things you continue to do. Everyone, buy the Lion Attitude. You will learn so much from it. I have learned so much today. I hope you have. It has me. I'm going to try to do this 5 a.m. club, so hold me accountable to that. I'll talk to Kenny about his tips and tricks. I'll talk to you about your tips and tricks.
Well, we can chat or text.
Yes. And we're going to figure all this out, but let's read this together. So it's all linked here. You can find it anywhere books are sold. And I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on this. And thank you so much for watching and listening each week. We appreciate you so much. Continue rating, reviewing, subscribing, doing all the things you normally do, and commenting. I love seeing all the comments on all of the posts and what you're thinking and who you want to see next. Continue doing that. We will talk to you next week on Hello, Hello.